Welcome to the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting to discuss the two flood reduction projects in the Halls Bayou Watershed. This virtual community meeting is being offered by the Flood Control District to continue to share vital information with the community during this period when in-person public meetings have been suspended due to safety concerns from the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Imelda Vera with the Flood Control District Communications team, and I am joined tonight by a team of Flood Control District leadership and subject matter experts to ensure we continue to keep you up to date on these important flood mitigation projects in your community. We are also joined by staff from area elected officials' offices and community associations. We are glad to see all of the community so engaged in these projects, and we look forward to continuing to share the updates and keeping you on the community involved. First, we would like to begin tonight's meeting with some remarks from Harris County Precinct 2 Commissioner Adrian Garcia.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. This is Adrian Garcia, Harris County Commissioner of Precinct 2. And I want to thank the Harris County Flood Control District for hosting this important community meeting. I know the past 18 months hasn't been easy for you and your families with the pandemic and most recently, the winter storm. But I am beginning to see some light at the end of this crazy tunnel. However, we are not completely out of danger. So I encourage you to please continue to practice the safety protocols as often as possible so that we can finally put an end to this pandemic. Too many families will have an empty seat at their table because of this deadly virus. And that is why I have been aggressively hosting vaccination sites throughout Precinct 2. I don't want more families to experience the loss of a loved one because of this virus. We are even doing them on Sundays in partnership with area churches because I want it to be as convenient as possible for anyone who wants and needs a vaccine to be able to get one. If you haven't already gotten your vaccine, please consider getting vaccinated. If you are hesitant, I completely understand. And I encourage you to speak to your doctor or a medical expert to help answer any questions and address any concerns. If you are looking for a place to get vaccinated, be sure to call my office or follow Harris County Precinct 2 social media pages. My team is updating them on a daily basis. You can call my office at 713-274-2222. Together, I'm confident that we can truly put an end to this pandemic. And now to the reason why we're here tonight. This meeting is to inform you about the status of two flood risk reduction projects in the Halls Bayou Watershed. You will hear an update on the results of flood bond project C-28's advanced feasibility study, which was completed in 2019, and the design details of flood bond project C-25. The goal of these two projects is to reduce flooding risk for your homes by improving the capacity of the Halls Bayou channel to convey stormwater during heavy rain events like we just recently had. These projects are funded through partnerships and with the $2.5 billion flood bond approved by you in 2018. As you may know, Precinct 2 is the downstream side of the county, and I want to be sure that the flood bond projects are done well, but as fast as possible, because as we just saw, we're subject to heavy rains whether we are officially in the hurricane season or not. However, I'm not waiting for the flood bond projects to be the only thing that keeps you safe. That is why I challenge my engineers and Public Works Department to be aggressive in maintaining our local drainage system. It is the first line of defense to keep your neighborhood from flooding. As an example of my commitment to keep you and your home as safe as possible, Precinct 2 has historically averaged 400,000 linear feet of drainage maintenance year to year. However, I'm very proud that my team last year, during the peak of the pandemic, was able to do 1,200,000 linear feet, and we are on track to do this again this year, if not more. This work is also coordinated with the Harris County Flood Control District because as we improve the neighborhood systems, I want to be sure that the flood control outfalls are ready to receive that flow so that we can get that water out of your neighborhoods as fast as possible. Additionally, we are prioritizing the drainage maintenance in the areas where there has been repeated flooding, and our goal is to get to a 5 to 7 year maintenance cycle. In fact, I've been in neighborhoods that haven't had any maintenance done in nearly 20 to 30 years because Precinct 2 previously did not have a structured and strategic maintenance program in place. That is no longer the case. I will continue to be focused on bringing a greater investment to our flood prevention efforts because I have seen the damage that too many families have had on too many occasions. In fact, I recall after Tropical Storm Imelda, meeting neighbors who had just finished remodeling their homes from the damage of Hurricane Harvey, just to be flooded again. I'm committed to doing as much as possible to address this. The flood bond projects, as you may have heard, are underfunded by nearly $1.4 billion because the state has not yet funded our projects as they promised, and as long as the flood control district submitted well thought through plans. Well, the flood control district did its part, and you demonstrated that we would also do our part locally by approving the 2018 flood bond worth $2.5 billion. But instead of waiting on the state, and during our last court meeting in April, I fought to bring more funding to address this shortfall. I was able to get Commissioners Court to unanimously approve my proposal to reallocate $550 million of a combination of toll road revenues, road and bridge bonds, and other possible future revenue to help pay for projects around traditionally neglected communities. Because your homes are at greatest risk, I did not want to wait on the state any longer. And that is why I worked to put the nearly $550 million to work for you. Now that we have trimmed the underfunding from $1.4 billion to nearly $900 million, maybe the state will finally give us our fair share to finish these flood bond projects sooner rather than later. Until then, I'll be working closely with the Harris County Budget Management Department to possibly close this funding gap even more. Thank you for taking the time to join this meeting tonight, as community engagement is an important component of the bond program. And we always welcome your participation as the program is implemented. It's important to remember that your voice, your experiences, and your opinions do matter because it helps us do a better job. So please continue to stay engaged, and please do not hesitate to connect with my office. When I hear from you, I use your point of view when I fight to bring more resources to our and your communities. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Be safe and God bless.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. We appreciate you joining us tonight to kick off the meeting. This virtual public meeting will begin with a presentation to share project updates, including information about the Halls Implementation Program, Bond Project C-25, and Bond Project C-28. The presentation will be followed by a virtual question and answer session with Flood Control District team members. Attendees will be able to submit comments and questions through the website or by phone. Any comments not addressed during the Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the close of the comment period. Instructions on how to participate in the virtual open house are included on this slide, on this virtual meeting webpage, and on the Flood Control District website. I will also share a reminder of these instructions when we reach the Q&A portion of the meeting.
La reunión pública virtual comenzará con una presentación para compartir actualizaciones del proyecto. Luego de la presentación, se llevará a cabo una sesión virtual de preguntas y respuestas con miembros del equipo del Distrito de Control de Inundaciones. Los asistentes podrán enviar comentarios y preguntas a través del sitio web o por teléfono. Todo comentario no abordado durante la sesión de preguntas y respuestas será respondido por el Flood Control District después del cierre del periodo para comentarios del público. Las instrucciones sobre cómo participar en la sesión abierta virtual se incluyen en esta diapositiva, en la página web de esta reunión virtual, así como en el sitio del Distrito de Control de Inundaciones. Además, les haré un recordatorio sobre estas instrucciones cuando lleguemos a la parte de preguntas y respuestas de la reunión.
We will now transition to Lars Zetterstrom, the Program Manager for the Halls Implementation Program, who will share information about the Flood Control District and projects within the Halls Bayou Watershed. Lars, over to you.
Thank you, Imelda, and a special thanks to each of you for joining us. In this presentation, we will give a brief overview of this program and 2 projects. Before we get to the project specifics, we want to share some information about the Flood Control District. For those of you following along with the PDF via phone, we are moving to slide 5 of tonight's presentation.
Para quienes siguen el PDF por teléfono, vamos a pasar a la diapositiva 5 de la presentación de esta noche.
The Harris County Flood Control District is a special purpose district created by the Texas legislature in 1937 in response to devastating floods that hit the Houston area in 1929 and 1935. The Flood Control District was created to serve as a local partner to leverage federal funding for flood damage reduction. Our mission has greatly expanded over 80 years with billions of dollars in infrastructure improvements in the ground. While we are a separate entity from Harris County, the Harris County Commissioners Court serves as our governing body. The mission of the Harris County Flood Control District is to provide flood damage reduction projects that work with appropriate regard for community and natural values. One of the most difficult challenges we face is constructing effective projects that are sensitive to community and natural values in a highly urbanized area. Harris County includes 22 main watersheds, totaling approximately 1,800 square miles and more than 2,500 linear miles of channel. 2,500 miles is approximately the distance from New York to California. A watershed is a geographical region of land that drains to a common channel or outlet. Each watershed has its own unique characteristics and needs. The program and projects we are presenting tonight are in the Halls Bayou watershed. Our area is flood-prone. Here are some reasons why. 1, extreme rainfall, including tropical storms and hurricanes. 2, flat, slow-draining land. And 3, clay soils that do not soak up excess rainfall quickly. The Flood Control District works with other agencies and shares jurisdiction over flooding issues in Harris County. This slide illustrates that shared jurisdiction. Inside neighborhoods, as shown on the left side of this illustration, storm sewers and roadside districts collect stormwater runoff and start the process of moving it away from streets and homes. Storm sewers and roadside districts are the responsibility of the underlying municipality and Harris County engineering in unincorporated parts of the county. The larger bayous and channels that take the collected stormwater and move it through our drainage system to Galveston Bay are the responsibility of the Flood Control District. This is shown on the right side of the illustration. In the middle is a stormwater detention basin, sometime constructed by the Flood Control District. When storm sewers are increased, this creates an increase in runoff. Since it is our policy to avoid impacts to properties downstream, detention basins help to safely take in and temporarily store excess stormwater during heavy rain events. Often we partner with Harris County precincts, utility districts, and others to add recreational amenities such as trails to these basins and along our channels. On August 25th, 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion in bonds for flood risk reduction projects. This vote followed a series of meetings across Harris County in each watershed, which resulted in a list of what is now 181 bond projects. 160 of those 181 projects have been initiated so far, including all of the projects in the Halls Bayou watershed. A total of more than $1.2 billion in partnership funding has been secured so far to stretch the 2018 bond program even further. The actual timing of each individual project will depend on a variety of factors, including environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocation, and in some cases, requirements of a particular grant. That said, project lists and projected schedules are updated regularly on our website. While the bond was for $2.5 billion, the full cost of every project in the bond table is almost $5 billion. So we made it clear from the outset that we would need funding partners to fully construct the projects in the bond program. As I mentioned, we've had some success so far, having secured more than $1.2 billion in partner funding. And this graphic illustrates the many sources of those partnerships, including federal, state, and local funding that Flood Control District is working to secure for Harris County. Each agency has its own definition of eligible projects and its own requirements for local match funding. So the Flood Control District works diligently to match projects to the right partnership opportunities. Now, before we get into the two projects we are here to discuss tonight, I want to provide an overview and an update of the Halls implementation program. For those of you who are following along with a PDF via phone, we are moving to slide 13 of tonight's presentation.
Para quienes siguen el PDF por teléfono, vamos a pasar a la diapositiva 13 de la presentación de esta noche.
While it is also its own watershed, Halls Bayou, which spans 45 square miles, is a tributary of Greens Bayou. Halls Bayou begins near the intersection of Antonine Drive and Fallbrook Drive and flows down through the Halls Bayou Greenway and Brock Park, emptying back into Greens Bayou. Flooding is a persistent hazard throughout the watershed for residents, businesses, and property owners. Tropical Storm Allison in 2001 is the storm of record for the Halls Bayou watershed, flooding more than 13,000 homes. Then, in 2017, Hurricane Harvey flooded an estimated 11,830 homes in the Halls Bayou watershed. The Flood Control District is taking a watershed-wide approach to planning flood risk reduction projects in Halls Bayou. The Halls Implementation Program is a watershed-wide effort working to implement the 12 flood risk reduction projects identified in the 2018 bond program for Halls Bayou. This watershed-wide approach provides a holistic view of activity in the watershed and enables the Flood Control District to deliver these flood risk reduction projects strategically and efficiently in this highly developed area. Projects primarily include construction of stormwater detention basins and channel conveyance improvements on the Halls Bayou tributaries and main stem. While every flood risk reduction project is unique, they all have common life cycle. Each project begins and ends with a common and predictable milestones along the way. Whether a project moves forward from one stage to the next and how quickly depends on many factors, including the availability of funding, shifting community priorities, and other changing circumstances from year to year. The average life cycle of a project is between 3 and 5 years. The life cycle starts with a feasibility study to determine if there is a good project to be built. That leads to a preliminary engineering report, and after that, we can begin right-of-way acquisition, which can take 12 to 18 months alone. We also have to secure environmental permits, which can take another 12 months. We also work through utility relocations if needed, and then complete final design, finally moving into construction and ultimately maintaining the new infrastructure along with all the other flood control projects around the county. The 12 projects in the Halls Implementation Program are depicted in their current stage of execution. Bond Project C-25, one of the projects we are here to discuss tonight, is preparing to go into construction. The second project we are here to discuss tonight, Bond Project C-28, is one of 7 projects in the preliminary engineering and design stages. We will go into additional detail about both of these projects in just a few minutes. As we just discussed, there are 12 projects within the Halls Implementation Program. 9 of those projects are funded through design stage by the 2018 bond program. Partnership funds will be needed in order to bring those projects to completion. In order to accomplish that, we have applied for over $212 million in state and federal grants. We continue to be confident in the grant applications we have submitted thus far. 2 projects, the projects that were further along in the project lifecycle at the beginning of the 2018 bond program, have been funded through completion. Bond project C-35 is almost completely finished, and C-25, one of the projects we will discuss tonight, is ready for construction. None of the projects in Halls Bayou are delayed at this time due to lack of funding. Many of these projects are still very early in the project life cycle and therefore are years off before becoming fully constructed. However, the Flood Control District will continue to proactively pursue partnership opportunities at every possible chance. There is one project that is undergoing early feasibility study, and therefore no additional funds are allocated until a project has been identified. That is bond project CI-006, the project identified for the Brock Park area. Our team has identified that a project in this area would not benefit Halls Bayou, so it is being identified as a potential project for the Lower Greens Bayou area. We will now move into the part of the program that is specifically about bond projects C-25 and C-28. For those of you who are following along with a PDF via phone, we are moving to slide 18 of tonight's presentation.
Para quienes siguen el PDF por teléfono, vamos a pasar a la diapositiva 18 de la presentación de esta noche.
Throughout this presentation, we'll be using terms like the 100-year and 500-year storm events. So let's go ahead and discuss what that means. Using the 100-year storm event as an example, the 100-year storm event is a rainfall event that has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. And in addition to being called a 100-year event, can also be referred to as a 1% annual chance event. That does not mean that if we have a 1% annual chance event today, that it will be another 100 years before it occurs again. Rather, that means that in any given year, we have a 1% chance of a 100-year storm event occurring. The storm events are simply a measure of the expected probability of a specific rainfall event based on available historical data. In this presentation, we will also be using a host of various terms when we talk about the causes of flooding and potential solutions. In our flood risk reduction toolbox, we have various techniques we can deploy to reduce the risk of flooding in a particular area. It is important to find the right type and right configuration for each project, which is what we do in the feasibility study stage. On this slide, you will see several of our typical tools, but tonight we will focus on the first two items in the toolbox: channel conveyance improvements and stormwater detention. Channel conveyance improvements may include widening or deepening a channel to carry more water, or improving the channel's efficiency by reducing vegetation, or both. Stormwater detention basins are designed to receive and hold above normal stormwater volumes. The water then slowly drains out of the stormwater detention basin as the water level in the channels recedes. A dry bottom stormwater detention basin will remain dry before a storm event, while a wet bottom stormwater detention basin has a permanent pool of water, which helps with aesthetics and water quality. These days, it is common to pair channel conveyance improvements in a channel with stormwater detention basins. There are several other terms related to flood risk reduction solutions that we will use tonight. When we are evaluating a stormwater detention basin's benefits, we look at it in terms of acre feet. An acre feet is a measure of volume equal to 1 foot of water spread over an acre, or as this graphic depicts, 325,851 gallons, or roughly a football field covered by 1 foot of water. Additionally, sometimes we refer to tributaries by using their designated flood control unit number, such as tributary P11821-00, or you may simply refer to them as the project channels. Channels provide the pathway for water to move through the watershed. Channels may be something as small as a ditch or as large as Halls Bayou itself. We will also discuss culverts or box culverts tonight as part of the project solutions. Culverts are pipes that carry water from the neighborhood under the road and into a channel. The final two flood risk reduction terms we want to review are related to the two types of stormwater detention. First, we have an inline stormwater detention basin. This is when stormwater is stored within the channel itself by expanding the size of the channel and/or by elevating the water surface by use of a control structure. The second type is an offline stormwater detention basin. This is when we divert stormwater from a channel and into a nearby stormwater detention basin for storage until the threat of flooding has passed. Moving into our two projects, the first one we will discuss is bond project C-25, which will make channel conveyance improvements on tributary P118-21-00 and construct a stormwater detention basin. This project is located just north of Halls Bayou in the Ism Street area between Crispin Road and Aldine Westfield Road. As you can see here on the map, the stormwater detention basin will be situated between Ism Road and Halls Bayou, running along Crispin Road. The construction of the new open channel is located north of the stormwater detention basin site between Ism Road and Aldine Mail Route Road. An underground culvert will run north of the open channel, first along Aldine Mail Route Road, and then towards the Western Home subdivision near Debony Drive. Further, this stormwater detention basin and channel conveyance improvements on tributary P118-21-00 will work in conjunction with two Harris County Engineering Department proposed projects: the Western Home Subdivision Drainage Improvements Project and the roadway and drainage improvement projects along Aldine Mail Route Road. For those of you following along with the PDF via phone, we are moving to slide 23 of tonight's presentation.
Para quienes siguen el PDF por teléfono, vamos a pasar a la diapositiva 23 de la presentación de esta noche.
Going into a little more detail on the project's features, the stormwater detention basin on the south end of the project area will have an approximately 180 acre-foot capacity. This is equivalent to almost 59 million gallons of water. It would take 89 Olympic-sized swimming pools to hold all of that water. The stormwater detention basin will be a wet bottom design with a vegetated shelf. The wet bottom configuration provides water quality enhancements, and the vegetated shelf will plant native vegetation along the perimeter of the stormwater detention basin, which provides aesthetic value to the area. The basin will provide regional flood risk mitigation benefits and mitigate the increased stormwater flows coming from the improvement made for the senior county projects in Western Home subdivision and along Aldine Mail Route Road. North of the stormwater detention basin between Ism Street and Aldine Mail Route Road, tributary P118-21-00 will be expanded and shifted west to increase its capacity while limiting impact to the surrounding community through the amount of right-of-way needed to construct the improvements. This new open channel will have a 140-foot top width and a 15-foot depth. Additionally, a new culvert is being installed along Aldine Mail Route Road and extended to the Western Home subdivision. This culvert system will receive water from the Harris County Engineering Department's Western Home Subdivision Drainage Improvements Project once completed. The Harris County Engineering Department is also planning drainage improvements to Aldine Mail Route Road that will include 2 additional culverts directing stormwater into the new channel. All of these culverts will carry water from the new channel and into the stormwater detention basin that will be constructed as part of this project. Now that we have reviewed the project's design, let's look at the anticipated benefits. During the preliminary engineering stage, we found that this area floods due to inadequate tributary capacity and length, overflows from the Halls Bayou main stem, and an inadequate local drainage system. Our project addresses issues with the tributary, which also enables the Harris County Engineering Department to improve the local drainage system. Here on the left, you can see the existing conditions for the 100-year storm event. The map on the right shows what our goal conditions are for this area. Our goal is to remove the floodplain from 100 acres. While Aldine Mail Route Road and the Western Home subdivisions are not in the floodplain and therefore do not show up on this map, they will be benefited by the proposed Harris County Engineering Department drainage improvement projects. It is important for us to note that this flood control district project lays the groundwork to allow for additional flood risk reduction benefits to be realized in this area through the area of Harris County Engineering Department's projects. Those 2 drainage improvement projects would not be possible to construct without flooding another area if the channel conveyance improvements and stormwater detention basin were not constructed first to handle the increased flows from those 2 projects. For the 500-year storm event, the existing floodplain shown on the left is even greater than for the 100-year storm event. The map on the right shows what our goal conditions are for this area. Our goal is to remove the floodplain from 66 acres. Similar to the 100-year storm event, there will be an additional benefits from improvements to the local drainage systems when the Harris County Engineering Department projects are constructed. Looking towards our next steps, we expect construction on the stormwater detention basin to begin this summer and to take about a year to complete. The channel conveyance improvements part of the project is expected to begin construction in late summer or early fall and be completed around the same time as the stormwater detention basin, the spring or summer of 2022. This $14.6 million construction project is funded through $4 million from the 2018 bond program and an almost $9.6 million grant from the Federal Community Development Block Grant for Disaster Recovery Program. Traffic impacts from construction will include lane closures along Ism Street and Aldine Mail Route roads. As we get closer to the project start date, we will provide information on the traffic control plan on the project's webpage, hcfcd.org/C-25. Since we have been discussing two area Harris County Engineering Department projects, I want to provide a little more detail on both of these projects before we discuss our second project for the evening. The Western Home Subdivision Drainage Improvements Project will provide improvements to the neighborhood drainage system. The Harris County Engineering Department project team is currently evaluating final options and are considering improvements to the roadside ditches, driveway culverts, and additional culverts. The Aldine Mail Route Road project consists of paving and storm sewer improvements from Slater Lane to Aldine Westfield Road. The Flood Control District project will provide necessary channel and stormwater detention capacity to receive waters for these projects and prevent downstream flooding that could otherwise occur from these two drainage improvement projects. For those of you following along with the PDF via phone, we are moving to slide 28 of tonight's presentation.
Para quienes siguen el PDF por teléfono, vamos a pasar a la diapositiva 28 de la presentación de esta noche.
Our next project tonight is Bond Project C-28, channel conveyance improvements on tributaries P118-25-00 and P118-25-01, and construction of the Oak Glen Stormwater Detention Basin. This project is still early in the project lifecycle. We are getting ready to publish and to finish up the preliminary engineering report stage. While we do not know the exact project location yet, we do know that the proposed project solution will reduce flood risk in the area of tributaries P118-25-00 and P118-25-01, located west of the Hardy Toll Road and east of Legia Road, in the area of Aldine Mail Route Road. The project is also expected to mitigate increased flows from two area subdivision drainage improvement projects proposed by the Harris County Engineering Department, Oak Glen Place and Aldine Village. Funding for this project stage in the upcoming design stage comes from the 2018 bond program, which will be used for the study and design phases of the project. To fund the project through construction, we have applied for two grants. The first is a grant and a loan through the Texas Water Development Board's Flood Infrastructure Fund program. The second is through the Federal Housing and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant for Mitigation Program. The Texas General Land Office is responsible for awarding grants under this program. The Flood Control District needs to secure at least one of these two grant opportunities in order to construct this project. With the preliminary engineering stage still underway, we do not expect it to hit the construction stage for another 2 years. When the project first kicked off in 2019, a broad project community engagement meeting was held at the Hardy Senior Center to discuss why this area floods and the goals of the feasibility study. At that time, we knew that there is limited capacity for stormwater in the existing channels and that neighboring channels overflow into tributary P118-25-00 during larger storm events, which makes the area flooding situation worse at times. Now, tonight we want to report on our findings from that feasibility study, including the sources of the flooding and the results of our alternatives analysis, which evaluated potential flood risk reduction solutions for this area. So when we started our alternatives analysis, we first looked at where flooding is occurring in this area and why it is occurring. Here on the left, you can see the existing conditions for the 100-year storm event. We found that this area floods during a 100-year storm event due to inadequate channel capacity and length, as well as overflows from the Halls Bayou main stem and adjacent channels. We also identified that the local drainage system needs additional stormwater capacity. The map on the right shows what our goal conditions are for this area. Our goal is to remove the tributaries inundation area from over 250 acres, which would include removing the tributaries inundation area for the 100-year storm event from approximately 600 structures and 3 miles of roadway. Please note that the goal conditions correspond to the tributaries inundation area, which this project aims to improve, along with enabling the Harris County Engineering Department's proposed subdivision drainage improvement projects. Overflows from the Halls Bayou main stem will still impact this area. We will show this overall impact after looking at the 500-year storm in this area. For the 500-year storm event, the existing conditions shown on the left is even greater than what we saw for the 100-year storm event. Our study found the reasons for flooding during the 500-year storm event to be the same as those for the 100-year storm event: inadequate channel capacity and length, overflows from the Halls Bayou main stem and adjacent channels, as well as limited local drainage system capacity. On the right, you can see what our goal conditions are for this area during a 500-year storm event. Our goal is to remove the tributaries inundation area from just over 200 acres, which would include removing the tributaries inundation area for the 500-year storm event from approximately 600 structures and just under 3 miles of roadway. Just like the previous slide, the project benefits shown here correspond to evaluation of the tributaries inundation area, which this project aims to improve, along with enabling the Harris County Engineering Department's proposed subdivision drainage improvement projects. Overflows from the Halls Bayou main stem will still impact this area. So let's take a look at that. As I just noted, this project aims to reduce the inundation areas for the Halls Bayou tributaries P118-25-00 and P118-25-01. The full benefits of these improvements will be realized once additional improvements to the Halls Bayou main stem are made. The exhibit on the left shows the existing conditions for the overall FEMA effective floodplain during the 100-year and 500-year storm events, while flooding occurring from overflows on Halls Bayou and a Greens Bayou tributary. The Flood Control District is evaluating improvements to Halls Bayou itself to improve these conditions to the overall FEMA effective floodplain. A complete solution to flooding in this area requires improvements to both the tributaries inundation areas through projects like Bond Project C-28 that we just discussed, and to improve overall FEMA effective floodplain through improvements to the Halls Bayou main stem, along with subdivision drainage improvements. Therefore, to figure out how to achieve our goal conditions for the tributaries inundation areas, we looked into our flood risk reduction toolbox and began pulling together several alternatives for evaluation. The alternatives considered included making channel conveyance improvements to the two channels, P118-25-00 and P118-25-01, in both the existing flood control district right-of-way and with additional right-of-way. The potential channel conveyance improvement solutions included widening, deepening, and extending the channel. We also considered the construction of a stormwater detention basin. We evaluated differing sizes, configurations, and locations for the stormwater detention basin. Combinations of the various channel conveyance improvements and stormwater detention basin alternatives were also evaluated as part of the alternatives analysis. For those of you who are following along with the PDF via phone, we are moving to slide 33 of tonight's presentation.
Para quienes siguen el PDF por teléfono, vamos a pasar a la diapositiva 34 de la presentación de esta noche. 33.
The selected recommended alternative will make channel conveyance improvements on tributaries P118-25-00 and P118-25-01, including lengthening tributary P118-25-01, and will construct a stormwater detention basin with a capacity to hold approximately 33 acre-feet, or almost 10.8 million gallons of stormwater. The recommended alternative is anticipated to provide a 100-year level of service to the area in the existing conditions, with overflows coming from adjacent channels. The Flood Control District is also planning improvements to the adjacent channel, tributary P118-26 and Bond Project Z-01, which will reduce its overflow into the P118-25-00 and P118-25-01 channels. Those improvements are expected to help provide greater flood risk reduction for this area, further improving the anticipated level of service from a 100-year storm event to a 500-year storm event. As we mentioned before, we do not know the exact location of the stormwater detention basin yet. That will be determined during the upcoming design stage. Looking towards the next steps, this project is currently in the preliminary engineering stage, where the selected alternative will be further evaluated and the design criteria will be finalized. We expect this stage to be completed this fall. The project will then proceed to final design, and the design stage is anticipated to be completed approximately 1 year later. At this time, we expect construction to begin in the spring of 2023 and to take approximately a year to complete. And finally, just like Bond Project C-25, we are designing this project to work hand in hand with 2 adjacent subdivision drainage improvement projects that will be constructed by the Harris County Engineering Department. These 2 projects will be in the Aldine Village and Oak Glen Place subdivisions. So to provide a little bit of additional information on the 2 Harris County Engineering Department's proposed subdivision drainage improvement projects, the Aldine Village subdivision drainage project will make storm sewer improvements in 2 locations. On the east along Sellers Road from Ridgeland Court to Corvette Court, and on the west along Leisure Road from Connorvale Lane running south past Walton Lane, where it connects the proposed drainage improvements in the Oak Glen Place subdivision. The Oak Glen Place subdivision drainage improvement project includes improvements to neighboring roadside ditches and storm sewers, as well as the construction of a stormwater detention basin. The construction of the channel conveyance improvements and the stormwater detention basin in Bond Project C-28 will enable the drainage improvements in these subdivisions to proceed. I will now turn the program back over to Imelda to kick off the question and answer period.
Thank you, Lars. Before we move into the Q&A, I want to share a quick reminder that we'd love to hear from you on this and other projects moving forward across Harris County. To learn more about this project, ask questions, and sign up for our mailing list, please visit hcfcd.org/C25 or hcfcd.org/C28. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. You can submit a comment on this side in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at either hcfcd.org/C25 or hcfcd.org/C28. Or you can also submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801, utilizing meeting code 8264. If you are joining via phone tonight, please press *6 to leave a message. Additionally, I want to remind everyone that any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District following the public comment period ending in June 2nd. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the Flood Control District's website and YouTube channel. Joining Lars for our Q&A session tonight are Dina, Shane, and Michael, who are overseeing the Flood Control District's project efforts, as well as Greg, who is overseeing the Harris County Engineering Department project efforts. So we'll go ahead and take some of your questions.
Les recordamos que existen 3 maneras de enviar un comentario sobre este proyecto durante la sesión de esta noche. Pueden enviar un comentario en esta página en el cuadro que hay junto a la transmisión en vivo. Pueden hacerlo en el sitio web del Distrito de Control de Inundaciones en hcfcd.org, pleca C25 o hcfcd.org, pleca C28. También pueden hacerlo por teléfono al 855-925-2801. De nuevo, es el 855-925-2801, utilizando el código de reunión 8264. Si se une a nosotros por teléfono esta noche, presione asterisco o estrella 6 para dejar un mensaje. Además, quiero reiterar que toda pregunta a la cual no se brinda respuesta durante la sesión de preguntas y respuestas de esta noche será respondida por el Distrito de Control de Inundaciones después del periodo de comentarios públicos, el 2 de junio. La información de esta reunión y una grabación de la transmisión en vivo estarán disponibles en el sitio web y el canal de YouTube del Flood Control District. Junto con Lars, para nuestra sesión de preguntas y respuestas de esta noche, se encuentra Dina Green, Shin Hee, Michael Liga y Greg Geller.
So the first question coming in is for Lars. Lars, this is a two-part question coming in from Mr. Guillermo Marquez. He's saying the preliminary engineering report for project C-25 P118-21-00-E001 provides three options for channel alternatives, alternative A, B, and C. Ultimately, alternative A was chosen. So he is asking, why was a channel route chosen that required the flood control district to create a new easement as opposed to widening its existing easement?
So I'll give an initial answer, and then I would ask Dr. Michael Liga to amplify the answer. So the initial response to your first question is that by relocating the tributary channel to the west, it eliminated the need for a second detention basin further upstream that was initially evaluated and required. So the new wider open channel shifted to the right also provides additional storage capacity that eliminated the need for constructing two detention basins. Mike, if you have anything else you'd like to add, please.
Sure. I'll just go ahead and note that when flood control does evaluate projects, they look at things like the level of service that can be provided, impacts to property owners, the number of residents that would need to be relocated due to right-of-way acquisition, and overall project costs. And sometimes those are competing things with each other, but flood control does try to balance those and then rank them to develop a recommended alternative. And in this case, the configuration we presented tonight was the recommended alternative from that report.
Thank you both. Following up to that, the second part of this question is why was alternative A chosen over alternative B?
Yes, so as I just referenced, the projects are ranked giving the various criteria, and alternative A ranked higher than alternative B.
Thank you. We have a Spanish question coming in from Emilia.
Emilia asks this evening, are there more projects planned for our area?
So overall in the Halls Bayou Bond Implementation Program, there are 12 projects. They're in various different locations of Halls Bayou. So, without defining the specific area you're referring to, overall for Halls Bayou depicted by this graphic, you can see where the 12 projects are being proposed for implementation.
En virtud de que no nos dice en qué área específica se encuentra, si mira el mapa que está en la pantalla, la agencia de Halls o el Bayou de Halls tiene 12 proyectos que están poniéndose en marcha y que lo puede usted ver aquí en el mapa que está previsto en la pantalla.
Thank you. The next question is for Shin. We have a question coming in asking how long will construction last for project C-25 and will there be traffic impacts?
Can you hear me? Yes, the C-25 projects is anticipated to start construction in summer of this year and anticipate to be completed by for 2022. And there will be temporary lane closures will occur on Eltham Street and Aldi Melrose Road during the construction. And we will also to post the traffic control plan on our project's website before the constructions.
Thank you, Shin. Next question is for Lars or Michael. Are any walking trails planned for this project?
So
Current,
go ahead, Mike.
sure. There are currently no plans to construct any walking trails or recreational amenities in relation with these projects. But Flood Control District does look to partner with other agencies to include amenities where possible, and we will continue to have those discussions and be open to those opportunities.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone, if they continue to have questions even after tonight's event, you can always, we always welcome your input on this project, and you can visit hcfcd.org/C25 or hcfcd.org/C28 and click submit a comment to ask a question or provide project input. We have another question coming in. This one is for Dina. Dina, how are these projects funded?
Sure. Actually, the projects are being funded through a combination of sources. So project C-28 that we described tonight, which was the preliminary engineering study along channel P11825, that's being funded through the 2018 bond program. So we do have funding for that. And as Lars mentioned, we've also included a grant application to request additional funding to help carry that all the way through construction. For our project C-25 that we described tonight, the one that's about to go into construction, that's one that's actually being funded through both local funding as well as a grant that we received, a community development block grant funding. It's roughly just over 2/3 funded through that grant and just under 1/3 approximately that's being funded through flood control funds for that project.
Thank you, Dina. I want to take this time to thank staffers from the Harris County Precinct 2 and City of Houston Council District H offices for joining us tonight. And also thank you to the members of the Greens Bio Coalition for joining us on this meeting. Another question coming in for Dina. Dina, what other opportunities will there be for public input on these projects?
Oh, sure. We're going to have a lot of opportunity for public input on all of the bond projects that we've touched on tonight and shared on the map. But for the two that we're talking about specifically tonight, at the end of the presentation, we'll put a website back up. You're welcome to go to that address and share your comments if you haven't had a chance to provide them with us tonight. There we go, right up on their screen. You're welcome to go ahead and submit a comment that way. For the P11825 or the C-28 project that we're out describing tonight, there will be additional public meetings as well as that project moves through our project life cycle. And as I mentioned, we will be out conducting further public meetings and community engagement for the remainder of the bond projects that we also have in the Halls Bayou Watershed. Thanks.
Thank you, Dina. Another question coming in for Lars. Lars, will the projects in the Halls implementation program eliminate flooding altogether?
Unfortunately, it's not feasible to eliminate all flood risk entirely. The goal of the overall Halls implementation program and the broader vision plan and phasing study is to achieve a roughly pre-Atlas 14 500-year level of service or an Atlas 14 100-year level of service. As a reminder, the overall proposal made in the vision plan for Halls Bayou would require more than $1.7 billion of funding to complete all of the recommended measures and projects within that plan. The bond program is specifically focused on 12 projects.
Thank you. Another question coming in for you, Lars. If you are improving flooding in this area, are you just flooding another area as a result?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Harris County Flood Control has a strict policy of not inducing any downstream adverse impacts for any of their projects. So all the projects that we described this evening and all the projects in the bond program will intentionally be evaluated and designed to ensure that there are no adverse impacts caused by their implementation.
Thank you. We have another Spanish question coming in.
Imelda asks, why is this a virtual meeting instead of a face-to-face and public meeting?
So the Flood Control District will be is hosting a virtual community engagement meeting for this project due to health concerns related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our precautions are in line with other city and county agencies, and for that reason, we will continue to do virtual meetings. As a reminder, this meeting will be available online on our website and on our YouTube channel after tonight.
La reunión virtual de la comunidad está siendo ofrecida por el Distrito de Control de Inundaciones para continuar compartiendo información vital durante este periodo. Han sido suspendidas las reuniones públicas presenciales por la pandemia de COVID-19. La grabación de esta audiencia va a estar disponible en la página de YouTube.
Thank you. Another question coming in for Lars. How long will construction last?
So for the two projects that were presented this evening, construction will last approximately 1 year for both. For other projects, it really varies on the size and scope of those projects, and as well as obtaining the necessary partner fund to fund the construction of the projects that have the funding from the bond program to carry them to completion of final design, but currently are seeking the additional partnered funds to construct them.
Thank you. A question coming in for Greg. Greg, how does the new development fit into this? And can the Harris County Flood Control District development restrict development in my area? I'm sorry, restrict
yes, so
development in my area.
Right, the HCFCD projects that were kind of referenced in this, there's not new developments. It's specifically related to mitigating the drainage, the flooding due to drainage improvements. So it does not tie into any new developments. So I do not have information on that, but we can look into that and get back to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, if you don't mind, real quick, Imelda. Yes, and I would like to point out, which was mentioned earlier, that Harris County is a no adverse impact community, and there are criteria in place so that if new development are constructed, they are required to mitigate changes in drainage. So that means that they're required to put in that extra storage or that detention or appropriate mitigation measures so that they aren't changing drainage in a way that's going to cause an impact on others upstream or downstream of them in the watershed or along those channel systems. So while we may not be aware of an immediate new development in this area, I did want to point out that there are those criteria and guidelines in place to ensure that as new development goes in, they are required to adhere to those guidelines so that they are mitigating any impacts they have on drainage.
Thank you, Dina. I want to remind everyone that any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District following the public comment period ending in June 2nd. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the Flood Control District's website and YouTube channel. And with that, I want to thank everyone for the presentation and everyone that was able to join us tonight. And we always like to issue this final reminder to purchase flood insurance as well as flood season in Harris County is year-round. Thank you all and have a good night.